and welcome to another episode of Trailblazers Rising. I am your host, Melanie, and I am so excited to bring to you my friend Pasha, who we have been mutuals on social media for a little while now, but y'all know that I don't understand the concept of time, so I can't tell you for how long. But she really speaks to the neurodivergent community in a broad capacity about understanding and accepting your unique neurotype. So Pasha, say hello, tell them who you are and what you do.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me, Melanie. I do a lot of things, as we do. I'm mainly work with individuals, couples, and groups, neurodivergent adults. I love working with couples, like the interesting dynamics of couples in relationship with different neurotypes. And I thoroughly enjoy speaking to organizations about neurodiversity affirming practices and being more inclusive, unless that is what I'm about. And I talk a lot about neuroqueering, the intersection of neurodiversity and queerness, and challenging norms, neuronormativity, heteronormativity, social norms, gender norms, all the things.
I tell you what, I have said this again, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I am a strong believer that neurodivergence, LGBTQI+, and those really cool witchy people, we're all the same. It's all, if you tell me you are part of the LGBTQI+ community, I'm in. If you tell me you're neurodivergent, I'm in. I just think we're all one and the same, and I really enjoy that intersectionality.
Yeah, one of the things I tell corporations or anyone who's working as a doctor or a therapist with the neurodivergent community is, or vice versa, like if you work with the neurodivergent community, you better be open and willing and able to work with the queer community and vice versa.
So it's funny you should say that. My husband and I have been together for 9 million years. Actually, we're going on 17 years. And last night, there was a funny little moment that we had. He had started his load of laundry kind of later in the evening. And because of where I'm at in my own energy cycle, normally I'm in bed by 8 p.m., but I have about 2 weeks out of every month where during my follicular and my ovulatory time, I'm amped. I'm ready to fucking go. I don't need a lot of sleep. I feel great. I'm hot shit, right? So I'm staying up a little later, and I looked at him and I was like, hey, babe, have you switched your laundry yet? Or something like that. Have you eaten your dinner? Have you switched your... We were just talking about that. It was like 9 p.m. And he's like, no, I haven't eaten anything yet. And I said, what? Well, why don't I go preheat the oven for a pizza for you? And then you go switch your laundry and, we'll just make this all happen. And he said, what did he say? He said something to me like, oh man, I'm sorry. You're going to tell me what to do. And I said, this is what I signed up for. You agreed to let me tell you what to do. So I am all about it. So, the way couples work in their relationship together is so intriguing. What are some of the cool ins and outs and ups and downs that you've seen thus far on your journey of working with neurodiverse and neuroqueer people and couples?
Yeah, well, some of the dynamics that always show up, one of them is a parent-child dynamic, and you might have just named it, where one person, and it's not necessarily a neurotypical person and a neurodivergent person, it's the person who is, and I will just call it out, usually the woman, if there is a heteronormative relationship or heteropatient relationship and there's a man and a wife, it's usually the wife that ends up, even if she is the one who is neurodivergent, micromanaging, taking on a lot of the emotional toll, taking on a lot of the tasks, all the to-do lists. So she's overwhelmed already with her stuff, potentially kids' stuff. And now all of a sudden also feels like she has a third child, fourth child, fifth child, whatever.
And we call that human giver syndrome. And it's one of the things I've been working on the most. So I love that you're bringing that up.
And in that parent-child dynamic, the person who's in the parental role takes on a tone of exhaustion and resentment. And then the person in the child role, which is sometimes and typically the person who is neurodivergent and often with ADHD, has a lot of shame and guilt, kind of feels like they can't do anything right. And there's this constant pattern of, you don't follow through. I try my hardest. Well, it's not hard enough. Well, what do you want from me? Nothing I could do makes you happy. Well, if you just do what I say. And then there's just like cycle and continuous pattern of interaction that repeats and repeats. So that's one of many very common dynamics that I see in neurodivergent couples.
That's so funny. And I've talked to some of my clients who have been in long-term relationships, whether they're still in them or they've been broken up or whatever, especially with a heteronormative woman-man situation. I am a strong-headed, determined person. I'm a Taurus sun and I'm a Taurus rising and I'm an Aquarius moon. For anybody who doesn't know, those are all fixed signs. So I want my way and I'm going to do whatever I can to get my way. And my husband has been the only person that I've ever met, male or female, that has been able to look at me and get me to act right. Like he's the only one that can rein me in when we're out and about. It doesn't really happen anymore now that I don't drink, but he's the only one that like he'll look at me and go, "That's enough." And I'm like, "All right." He's the only one I will listen to. Anybody else tells me that's enough, and I'm like, "You think so? Okay." But he tells me it's that, yeah. So he's the only person that I can't bulldoze. And he's been that way since the moment I met him and said, "Hey, you're going to start hanging out with me."
It's good if there's some, equality and some reciprocity and it's more collaborative where one person isn't just, taking advantage of the other. That works much better. So it's good that you both can, tell each other the truth and speak your mind equally.
Communication is so important. And there has been such a big conversation on TikTok, especially between the miscommunication that happens between allistic people, which mean non-autistic, and neurodivergent people, right? And we know it's kind of like that game of telephone and that sort of thing. But from what I've seen, it has a lot to do with the fact that divergent people are direct. I am ADHD and autistic. I have the persistent drive for autonomy. Don't call it the other PDA. I'm not going to listen to you call it pathological demand avoidance. It's bullshit. But I have always been direct and I've always had people tone policing me. And it's always kind of bit me in the ass that I'm so direct. And we know with holistic neurotypical people that they're not as direct. And so this huge drop off in communication and understanding happens. And I think it further drives the wedge between neurotypical and neurodivergent. But at this point, I'm so preoccupied with surrounding myself with fellow neurodivergent people that I just don't give a fuck anymore.
You've filtered the rest of the world out.
I mean, it's just like masking is what leads us to burnout.
Yeah.
But masking is changing ourselves to fit in everywhere. And we know it doesn't work. So what if we all just radically decided to stop masking and doing this emotional labor for strangers or people that we barely know and just go about living our lives? What would change?
Yeah, no, I'm all about unapologetic masking. And I definitely want to surround myself mainly or solely with and queer folks. And I also have family members that don't fall into either of those categories. So I still have to figure out how to live and, love amongst them. So there is still people that we have to deal with sometimes. But yeah, in general, I like to surround myself with neurodivergent folks.
So how do you navigate those relationships that we have with friends or family members, that sort of stuff, that are committed to misunderstanding you or who are committed to keeping you in the mindset or the place where you serve them best, right? Because we know as entrepreneurs, the first thing that happens when you start working for yourself and growing your own business is that most of the people that you call friends and family don't support you. And if you continue trying to hold that relationship with them, you can't be successful. How do we navigate that?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is setting clear boundaries, protecting our own self boundaries, our own space and time around when we will engage with those people, not answering the calls or the texts if they come in, like initiating conversation when we're energetically aligned, when we have the ability and capacity to speak with them and receive them. And then this is where kind of therapeutic comedy comes in, but I really like reframing and taking my power back through therapeutic comedy around family. Like, I know what they're going to say. I can tell you what the conversation will be at dinner if I bring up a certain social or political view. I know what they're going to say if I talk about autism or ADHD or trauma. And then it's a game I play with myself about almost scripting it in my head and not getting so frustrated when it keeps happening again, like calling it out. And like I knew that was going to happen. And then I just play with that. It's a little more playful and lighthearted than the heaviness of like, are we fucking having the same conversation again? Are you actually responding to me like this again, no matter how many times I've set the boundaries and said, please don't say this or don't respond to me like this. So it's just like, yeah, we can't change.
Listen, the freedom that I experienced once I realized that I am not responsible for the way my family behaves, I'm only responsible for the way I behave. It gives me a lot more time. This gives me a lot more energy.
Absolutely. I have this thing, I learned this from Rob Bell, who's a kind of spiritual mindset, delightful human. And he talks about a converter, like a machine, but it's imaginary, it's metaphorical. And like if you feel jealousy, put it through the converter of your mind And it's actually about desire. It's like, what do you desire? And that's why you're jealous. And if I'm angry, I put it through the Virgo. I'm like, that's actually about shame and grief. And it's like, so sometimes I'll just go into a conversation with somebody, a challenging conversation, and I'll start filtering through not just my own emotions and reactions, but theirs. Like, isn't that interesting? They're getting defensive because like what maybe my freedom is reflecting their lack of freedom on them. And I try to convert it in the moment.
I love that you brought that up. So I started my business a few years ago in 2020, and it took me about 6 months until I got my first client because I just said, hey, I'm going to be a mindset coach and this is what I'm going to do. And I have a degree in business. So why the fuck couldn't I do it? It's not the route that I recommend to others. All right. It's definitely not the quickest. It's not the fastest. It's not the easiest. I do recommend working with a coach as quick, hard, and fast as you can. However, what I noticed is the more I grew as a person and a service provider and an entrepreneur and a person with ADHD and a mom and just a human in general, the more I triggered people that were not growing.
Yes, yes. You're reflecting back to them, like your radiance and expansion and their lack of.
And as an autistic person, and I didn't know I was autistic back then. I didn't find out about my autism diagnosis until this past year or so. I knew ADHD and I knew that meant rejection sensitivity and a few other things, but I really didn't know. I didn't have the education that I do now about neurodivergence in general. And as an undiagnosed autistic person, I remember always saying to myself, I don't understand why somebody would do this to me. I would never even think about doing this to somebody else, right? Like I saw somebody winning and was like, that's so exciting. And then when I started winning, people didn't like it and I didn't get it. And now I see it, from that spiritual woo-woo perspective of the more you shine your light, the more you are exposing their darkness and their unwillingness to grow. And if you guys started in the same spot, and now all of a sudden you're doing much better, it's proof that they could have done the same thing.
Yeah. And this is why couples grow apart. And often in midlife, when there's a reclamation of our expansion, our new desires, our new awareness, whether it's through understanding our brains better or tapping into our sexuality more, or just starting to give less fucks, and the other person in the partnership is not doing that growth, it's very challenging to continue.
So what would you recommend to a couple that finds themselves in that situation and wants to work through it? What are the first couple steps to take when you're finding that one is doing a lot of work to get into alignment and grow, and the other one is like, wait, what are you doing? I need to know what's going on. What do they do?
Well, to the person who's growing, like keep growing, keep expanding, keep flying. Don't let anybody else, hold you back, and don't play small. They can go find less if they need you to. And to the person who is not growing as quickly, please do not sabotage passive aggressively or just blatantly that person's growth in all the ways that can be done. And grow at your own pace and capacity and time, and try not, for the person who's not growing as quickly, it might take longer. This is about different neurotypes too. Some people just don't have the very fast zest for research and learning and assimilating new things. Like some people don't thrive with change, some people do. So allowing the relationship to sometimes frankly be complete, not a failure, just done. I mean, sometimes that's where it goes. And even in couples therapy and couples coaching, like sometimes that's where it goes. And it's not, I mean, obviously we think about all the ways that we can work together as a couple, but if one person is expanding and the other one's sabotaging it, that's not going to work.
I've recently had that realization with my relationship with alcohol. It was November of this past year that I literally just woke up one day and was like, this doesn't serve me anymore. And I come from a long line of partiers. I come from a lifestyle of partying, drinking. I was a cigarette smoker for 15 years. And then my mom got diagnosed with stage 4 head and neck cancer in 2018. And my husband was away. He's in the Navy, so he was away at the time. And I called him and I said, hey, we're quitting smoking. You're quitting. Like you have tonight to continue smoking and like process this. And then we quit tomorrow. And that's it. There will never be any more nicotine. There will not be any vapes. There will not be any ciggies. There will not be any dip. There will not be any of and so that was 2018. And then in November of this past year, I woke up with a hangover and I said, I run my own business. I love early mornings. I love getting stuff done in the early mornings so that I have time in the middle of the day to exercise, work with my clients, make content, do the things that I really want to do. And this is limiting my freedom. But knowing that the only reason that I'm not drinking anymore is because I was able to appreciate it for it being a coping tool and mechanism that got me through a life that was not aligned for me, right? I was always overstimulated. I was always stressed out. I was always trying to accommodate other people. I was always trying to fit in. I was always trying to be the fun party girl. And there's so many reasons why people with ADHD especially drink, and people with undiagnosed autism drink. And when we see the things in our life and the relationships in our life as stepping stones to forward movement, sometimes letting go, like you said, is the only thing to do.
Yeah. Like, had your husband not agreed to stop smoking or stop drinking, and you knew that that was going to inhibit your growth, your wellness, and like, that's a perfect example of it, that you set a boundary and that was your boundary. Like, if you don't stop smoking, like, we're not going to be able to live together because I can't be around it anymore. That's
Yep.
not, it's not loving him or it's like, it's not about love. It's about your choosing, what you want, what you need, what you deserve for yourself. And,
Yeah.
and yeah, sometimes that means we don't continue.
So what do you see as some of the biggest challenges for neurodivergent women, especially when it comes to, and I hate this word, but I don't have a better term for it yet, but it's so important when it comes to self-care.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the things that come, like, we know literally everybody who's listening to this knows what we quote unquote should do for self-care, what we could do for self-care, what we should eat, what we should do. And yet we find ourselves like, well, then why the fuck aren't I doing it? Right. And that's what's really, really frustrating. And so I find that we often put other people's ideas of what self-care looks like onto ourselves as expectations, society's views or views you see on social media or even your friends. Like, one person says, walking and meditating, another person says celery juice, another person says, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
you should be intermittent fasting, you should be massaging, you should be masturbating every night. Like, all those things might not work for you. And if you're neurodivergent, and especially if you have a lot of sensory issues and sensitivities, hypo or hypersensitivity, your self-care of like, oh, just go for a walk outside is going to be filtered through, okay, but like, I don't have clothes that are comfortable and it's hot outside and the temperature and the sun is bright and I don't want to put on sunscreen because that doesn't feel good and that hurts my eyes. And when I go outside, I hear the barking of the dogs and then I smell the mold. And then all of a sudden, we get ourselves kind of stuck because somebody else said that that's what self-care looks like. Well, your self-care, might look like lying on a couch with your fuzzy blanket and reading a book. And another person's self-care might be traveling the world. It's like, it's so nuanced and it drives me a little bananas when there's like this is what you do. You wake up, you make your bed.
Oh my God. Tell me, how many nights have we stayed up late coming up with a perfect routine that was going to save our life and business the next day?
And if you're ADHD, you do not want to do the same routine every day. You will get bored and you will burn out. So what I like to do is like, okay, what at this moment is lighting you up? Like, and whether it's research or puffins or long baths, like, it doesn't matter. Like, what is lighting you up at this moment? Delve into that until you don't want to, like, until that's boring. And then learn something new and try something new, right? Like, my self-care used to be yoga and celery juice. That's not what it looks like now. Things change and we have to adapt and be a little bit more like, ooh, like grace, giving ourselves grace to be in the flow a little bit more of how our bodies change, our energy change, our capacity changes. So many people who are neurodivergent also have chronic illness. So many who are midlife and neurodivergent are dealing with like the hormonal changes, the fact that the medications don't work anymore, their energy levels are down, their libido's down, all that. Our bodies have like morphed into what the hell is that? And so we have to like get creative and be a little bit more like playful. And like, this is like a human school we're in, and it's weird. And, the curriculum is set up by ourselves, but sometimes it's like, oh, we're going to do that now. Okay. We're taking a whole new course now. Interesting.
Right. Okay, great. I guess we signed up. When did it start? Because I am a big proponent of going for daily or at least 5 times a week. WALK. I can't say the word because of my 4-legged animals. They'll get too excited and it'll just be ridiculous. So, but they're starting to understand what I say when I spell it. But when I wanted to do this, right, and I'm in Northeast Florida, it is hot, right? So from mid-June until October, you cannot go out in the middle of the day and take a 3-mile WLK. It's impossible. It's unsafe. It's, we were getting text messages on July 4th and July 5th from our city saying, hey, heat advisory, like we can't do this, right? And I remember when I was thinking about, I would like to go for long walks and whatnot, but I was so dysregulated in my nervous system that my first thought was, what if I break my ankle and I'm 3 miles away from my house? It's not a person that's going to be able to enjoy self-care in the form of exercise.
Yeah.
So we really got to get to the root of like, how is it feeling right? Right? Let's figure out what the routine is based on your capacity.
Yeah. And I mean, in that situation where you're in Florida and it's hot, but you want to move your body, or maybe you're moving through trauma and you have a lot of energy pent up and you needed to go somewhere. Like my thought would go to like, okay, can I take a cold shower? Can I dump like ice cubes down my shirt? Like what, meet yourself where you're at, but also meet like life where it is, the reality of life, the heat and humidity where you're at, and that's
absolutely. It's funny. Because I don't like a routine. I know we just said, a strict routine's not going to work. What I like for consistency is my flexible systems that make it so, if my goal is to take my makeup off at night, that's either going to be a makeup wipe on a low energy day, or it's going to be an 8-step skincare routine on a high energy day. But either way, I didn't go to bed with my fucking makeup on, right? So what I have been doing recently to make sure I can get in my movement for the day is I wake up early, which I'm already up between 5 and 6 a.m. most days anyway, just because I don't know, life of the entrepreneur, but I'm also in bed by 8 p.m. most of the time. So I wake up early, and this is what I did the other day. I woke up early. I went out. I went for like a 4 or 5 mile WALK, came back, showered, and realized I was tired. And I laid back down at 9:45 in the morning and slept till noon, and then got up. And like when my teenagers were getting up, I'm getting up going, oh, hey, I've already done half of my day. I just seen in a nap because I can't reverse those roles these many months for these many months of the year. Right. So like a noon walk is not possible.
I think
we're good.
And I love what you said about you have to take your makeup off and you could either do a quick wipe or you could do this long process. I think that's true for everything, especially for people with ADHD who need variety, and especially if anyone has like PDA in their identity. It's like we like choices. Like we don't want to be told what to do even by ourselves. And so it's like we have a menu, not like you're going to do this. You have a menu. You're going to like in the morning, I'm going to eat either oatmeal or eggs, but I'm not going to be like tomorrow morning you'll eat eggs, or it's not,
Seriously.
And all the choices, even if it's between two things, like I could go for a WALK, or I could dance in my living room. There's always options.
Yeah, there's always options. Questions are really helpful as well. So in terms of affirmations, in terms of self-care, and any of those things, right? If I already have an internal dialogue that's popping off and I got to keep my syndrome, who I named Piper, simmer down and quiet and towards the back, right? I literally, and this is what I describe in my energy optimization planner, I just am constantly asking myself, what's going to make me feel my best right now, right? So like even on those low energy days, I know on the first 2 days of my period that I will feel so much better if I get up and I make a protein shake first thing in the morning. Like I just know that there's a few supplements I can take, and a 20 milligram or whatever, 20 grams of protein shake. Yeah. Is it a couple steps that I don't feel like doing, taking those vitamins out and swallowing them and making the shake? Yes. But is it going to make a world of difference in the way I feel? Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and do it.
Yeah. That's a good question. Sometimes I'll say like, who do I want to be? Who do I want to be today?
What is your opinion on being the best version of yourself? I am very pro becoming the best version of yourself. It's not in terms of being better than anybody else and like having to push yourself to an unnatural limit. It's really just about like, how can I show up for myself today?
Yeah. I was worried you were going to say like, work to your best potential, because I think what happens a lot for neurodivergent people, because we have a lot of abilities and a lot of strengths and a lot of parts of we're genius in so many ways, but we tend to try too hard. And so the only thing I was going to say is if the best version of is the best version of myself that I'm a global professional speaker speaking about neurodiversity affirming practices in society's views, yes, because that would be the most profitable. In my own truth and capacity, is that the best version of myself? No, because it doesn't honor my current capacity and energy. And so I think it's just being the best version of ourselves and allowing it to change every day. Because sometimes that means like being a zombie on the couch and watching TikTok and taking a long nap.
And for the people I was just talking to one of our students at the Neurospicy Academy about this yesterday. She's in Australia. I love her to death. And she's like, I really hate it when I get stuck to the couch and I'm, scrolling and I'm watching a show and all of a sudden 8 hours have passed by. And I said, okay, well, she's like, it's not productive. I waste all the time. I said, okay, well, what would have not been a waste of time? What could you have done with that time that wouldn't have been a waste? She's like, well, I did a puzzle the other day and I said, I think a puzzle's a fucking waste of time. Because if I'm on TikTok, I have made my algorithm, so I'm learning shit. And then I'm going to go Google things. I'm going to write things down. I'm going to get inspired to come up with ideas for my own social media. But like a puzzle. And she was like, oh, and I said, so you see what it is. Rest comes in many different forms. And if you don't appreciate it while it's happening, whether you feel like you're dissociating on the couch for 6 hours, maybe your brain and your body needed that.
Yeah. Yeah. And for one person, their deep rest and deep quiet is the puzzle. For another person, that is not fun nor pleasurable nor restful or healing. And the only other thing I would kind of like note or challenge in that is if we call it wasting time or killing time, that will be our mindset around it. Like, so what if we took the violent terms out of it and the negative terms out of it and we're spending time, we're on our own time, we're enjoying time, we're using whatever. Like, I mean, wasting time, we're killing it, we're ruining everything. Sometimes
Right.
it's how the words we use sometimes matter.
What, so I know excuse me. Okay, that was an energetic movement. And I feel better now. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Our inner critic is so harsh. And there's a figure floating around outside around that I hear a lot of people refer to on TikTok. And it's like an undiagnosed ADHD child hears the word no, or like you're wrong, or stop that 2,000 times more than a non-neurodivergent child. It's some crazy ass number, and we've heard it over and over and over again. So of course we're going to be rejection sensitive. Of course it's ingrained in our very being to change who we are.
Yeah. I have a big beef with rejection sensitivity dysphoria definition because it says real or perceived rejection. It's not perceived. It's based on real experiences of being actually rejected.
Yeah.
The insidious cycle of the RSD, rejection sensitivity dysphoria, is trauma, like real actual trauma. Somebody did reject you. Somebody did criticize you. Somebody did say you're not working to your full potential. Somebody did tell you you're lazy or you're worth more, whatever. And then you people please to try to either fit in or impress or get praise or find love. And then you burn out because you did too much. You work beyond your capacity, beyond your skill set. And then because you've burnt out, let's say in a job or a relationship, now you have to leave that job or you lose that relationship. Now there's actual rejection. And then the cycle starts all over again. Trauma, people pleasing, burnout, rejection. Trauma, people pleasing, burnout, rejection.
Yeah. I see it manifest a lot too in my clients. I work with coaches and practitioners and healers and consultants and that's service providers, really. And they're so afraid to ask for the sale, right? Or like, how many times have you been in a text conversation, a DM conversation, whatever it is with somebody, and back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then when you're like, okay, well, like, do you want to know what it looks like to do coaching with me? And then you don't hear from them for a little bit. And you're like, that 10 minutes, I'm crazy. Why do we do that? And you spiral. And then they come back and they say, oh my God, I got so busy at work. I would love to talk to you about that. And then you just had to experience rejection that didn't even fucking exist.
Yes. Yeah. Because sometime or other in your past, somebody didn't get back to you. You were rejected as a coach at one time or another. So we're filtering it through those experiences. And we go to the worst case scenario really fast and we spiral out.
What are you talking about really fast? That's the first place I go.
And so if somebody makes a comment or doesn't make a comment in the silence, like we go, wonder why they said that. Wonder what that means. That probably means I'm not good at my job. That probably means I shouldn't work at all. That probably means I'm worthless. This probably means nobody going to love me. Turns out I'm unlovable. It's like, blah, 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 blah. And we just didn't hear back from somebody. And then that's fast. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My mom used to say, especially when I was little, apparently I had speech impediments and stuff that I had to work really hard in school to get over and whatnot. But I used to, I guess, be a little kid and walk around and go, you should probably think about else, Mom. It's like, instead of saying something else. So my mom used to always say to me, if I was brooding or ruminating on something, she'd go, Mel, why don't you go think about else? ELTSE. And I was like, I will go think about else. You are so right. And then I would go do something physical or something like that, right? Or my mom used to always say to me, maybe you'll feel better after a shower, right? Because she knew. One of the first things she told my husband when she met him, I was 19 years old when I met my husband and he was 27. And I brought him down to Naples because I went down there. I lived in Tampa when I met him, and then my mom lived in Naples. So it's like a 2-hour drive. And I went to go visit my mom almost every weekend, right? So I brought him down there. One of the first things she told this man, she goes, you don't really tell Mel what to do. And I saw this whole thing go down and I looked at him and he goes, oh yeah, I know that. And I already knew it, but this is it, right? So when you reflect back on your life through the now lens of undiagnosed neurodivergence, let's talk about the grief that comes with that.
Yeah, a lot of grief, a lot of anger, a lot of like, oh my goodness, would my life have been so much easier? Why didn't people know? Were people not watching me or caring for me enough? Teachers, parents, would I not have been so hard on myself? Would I have accepted myself? What could I have done? And what would I have been had I had, loved myself more and accepted myself more? Would I feel so stuck now? Yeah, all the love.
And it's like, too, you think about, there are things that I do now that are glaringly ADHD or glaringly autistic that I've done my whole life. And I'm 37 years old. And you're just like, it was right there. How did we not see this? What are we talking about here? Right. But that grief is so true with any part of growing and evolving as a human on this planet. Right. And it's one of the reasons why a lot of people choose not to grow.
Yeah. Because when you grow, when you start moving through your trauma, when you start to realize your neurodivergence, you literally become more traumatized and more neurodivergent. Like all of a sudden, like now that I know I'm autistic, I'm stimming more. Now that I know I'm ADHD, I'm forgetting things more. Like, what the heck is that? Why am I moving through my trauma and feeling more traumatized? Well, everything's coming up to the surface. All the awareness we've been masking and pushing it down and hiding it, and suppressing it to just fit in or survive. And now it's all coming out. So there's going to be a period of time in the healing. It's sometimes called a healing crisis, where you feel like you're like worse before you get better, where you feel like things are like completely chaotic before you start to settle into your new mind and body and abilities. But that's frankly where it's a great time to hire a coach or a divergent friendly therapist, because that's a journey. Is a journey to self-awareness and rediscovery of who the heck you are. And finding your truth is a beautiful thing, but it's also really painful because you're peeling back all those layers of grief and shame from probably decades.
And, we have my business partner, Christina. Hi, Christina. She's part of the editing team. Hi. Anyways, she and I talk about the trauma drive, right? And how when it's the tiger chasing you, that is the external force motivating you to show up, right? And then the tiger goes away. And we have to become internally and intrinsically motivated to achieve the things that we want to do. But then there's this disconnect, this friction that happens, because when you're driven by trauma, you can do a lot. When you're driven internally, you can't do as much. Like I tell people all the time, I used to wake up at 6 a.m., get my kids to school, go to the gym for an hour and a half, come home, do my schoolwork because I was getting my business degree, go to work in a restaurant from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m., go out for drinks with the girls after that, wash and repeat, do it again, right? Every night was meatless Mondays at my fucking house. Come on, kids, I'll cook, I'll do this, blah, blah, blah. And now I can't even go to Walmart and Target in the same day.
Nope. It's exactly right. Because you're like, oh, that was hard. I was running on fumes. I was running after the tiger. I was coming from that trauma place or that anxiety place. And I don't need to do that anymore, nor can I, nor should I. And it's all of a sudden like it's just coming into our truth. And so much of the shame that I hear from midlife, late diagnosed or late discovered self-diagnosed neurodivergent people is just like, I used to be so fill in the blank, productive, success, energized. And now I can't even go to the grocery store or anything else, like more than one thing a day. And it's like it's an honoring of ourselves. And kind of back a little bit into the parts work, but like being like loving the part of ourselves back then that just worked on hyperspeed, and really loving on the part of ourselves now that is like needing a rest and needing to slow down and going on like Melanie time now, going on like Pasha time now, not the world time or social time or clock time, like Melanie time.
Then if time is all just a matter of perception, right? And we can prove this, right? So like every vacation you ever went on that you had a great fucking time, that was over in a blink. In the blink of an eye, a 3-day vacation is over, and now all it is a memory, right? As opposed to trying to get your ass to the DMV, that's going to be long years, right? But it's actually, it's a short period of time, but because we are not enjoying ourselves, we're stressed out, we're in pre-meltdown mode and, pre-overload and that sort of stuff. It's not enjoyable. But when you are having a good time, that shit's just gone like that, right? So if we understand that time is all about perception, slowing down is where your power is.
Absolutely. You can slow time down. You can make it go faster and you could slow it down. You could disconnect and disassociate and numb out, and you can make the day pass, or you can sit with it, and it might be uncomfortable at times, but you can sit with it, you can slow it down. You can be like, all right. And by the way, with the more time you have, the less you get done. There's that whole Parkinson's law. So like if you tell yourself, I'm going to go to the grocery store between now and 7 p.m., you will take the entire day to go to the grocery store and probably will do it close to 7 p.m. But if you say, I'm going to go to the grocery store before noon, you'll do it before noon. So sometimes it's nice to give yourself a little bit of structure, because structure equals freedom, a little bit of discipline or routine, however you want to call it, so that you don't feel like you have looked back, and I won't say wasted, but like it's like a void. Like, what just happened today? I wasn't even present. I wasn't even here. I was just like saving my spoons or saving my energy to go grocery shopping. And in doing that, like, I don't even know where I was.
Yeah. The PDAer in me always says, like, when I'm making plans, there's a method to the madness, right? So for example, my system for grocery shopping, I have a almost 15-year-old son. I have a 13-year-old son. And I have a husband, and I have 2 male dogs. Okay. That is the home that I live in. Everybody is always eating or asking about. Okay. So my method to the madness is for getting to the actual grocery store, because I can't order my groceries. They never give me the right things. I don't want to pay all those extra fees. I don't want to have to answer all these text messages when I can't find the things. I've ordered pepperoni before, like the stick of pepperoni, and the guy brought me a frozen pepperoni pizza. So, all right. So I'm not going to sacrifice my mental well-being to have somebody. I'm just going to go. So it's sunglasses, it's headphones, it's knowing my route, getting my stuff. Is it a big day? Is it a small day? That sort of thing. And I will only go to the grocery store when everybody's home, because then when I come home, I'm not unloading anything. I am maxed out. So I get in the driveway, I honk the horn, everybody comes out, they get everything out of the car, and then the men have to put everything away. And this is also so that they know what the fuck I got.
Yeah.
Right? So systems and strategies like that are what get you in the way of the right routine, right? So when you wake up in the morning, you go, okay, so I know I need to go to the grocery store. I know I have a call at 11 with Pasha. I know I have a call tonight with my client at 7. Based on the temperature that it is outside, when somebody's going to be home to help me with all this stuff, I have to go grocery shopping at this. And then my brain and body are able to be like, that makes total sense. We're behind you. We're going to support this. We're going to do it.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah. I love that idea. And I really love that you delegated or had a conversation, I assume, with the family about, passion, argument, whatever it looked like. But this is the way it's going to be, in a lot of partnerships, it's like, okay, there's silos, or like, there's like, okay, you're always going to do the yard stuff, and I'm always going to figure out like the kids' camp. You're always going to do the dishes, and I'll always clean up. You're always going to do the laundry dirty, and I'll do the folding, whatever. And then if there's times where you feel like, why am I doing all the things and you're not doing any of the things, then come back to the table and like renegotiate, and maybe try like swapping, or maybe try like something that you haven't done before, or change the pattern, or do something that's different, because one person's going to become just so overwhelmed and bored and
resentful.
Yeah, and exhausted. And so, yeah, you don't have to do things the same way all the time. You certainly don't have to do things the way your parents or your friends or social media tells you, ever.
Yeah. Well, and I have a kid. Gabby, will you make sure Clive can get in? Please go on back, make sure he's in. Anyways, they'll cut that out. Or maybe they won't. Who knows? So when it comes to working with you, where can people find you? What is your favorite social media platform for them to get in contact with you or follow you? And, what can they expect when they work with you?
Yeah. Well, all the cool neuroqueer people live on TikTok, as I'm finding. TikTok is where I originate my content, and then I kind of repurpose it from there. So TikTok, I'm at Neuroqueer Coach. You can also find me on Instagram at Neuroqueer. And I have other platforms, but those are the places I spend most of my time. The working with me looks like individual or couples work, which is over Zoom or in person if you live in Maine. And it's a lot about what are the patterns that are happening now? What's a constant pattern that keeps repeating, no matter what details or context you put in it. Let's look at the form of your patterns. Let's look at the form of your arguments and how can we interrupt them and change them. And it looks like that with individual and couples work. And then in group coaching, I call it neurocommunity, and it's meeting once a week for group coaching and once a week for co-working. And every week we talk about a different theme related to being nerd. Yeah. Yeah. So those are the ways that most people work with me.
That sounds
Oh,
so
and
fun.
my website has everything. PashaMarlowe.com. I know this is so ADHD. And like, oh yeah, I have a podcast, Neuroqueer. And oh yeah, I have an online course, same bed, different brains. And oh yeah,
Brain, I gotta write that.
yeah,
Bed,
it's an online
different-
course, probably most useful for ADHD, autistic, or couples moving through trauma. Very, very queer or straight friendly. And then I wrote a book called My Next Husband Will Be a Lesbian, talking about queerness and just the reclamation in midlife that happens when we start to reclaim our desires. I don't know. I've probably done other stuff too, but yeah.
My next husband will be a lesbian. I tell you, I
You said
say
that
quite frequently. I say no, but I do quite frequently say, you know, if and when my husband kicks the bucket, I am not really looking for a partnership ever again. I think I'm just looking for somebody who I can pay to cater to what it is that I want. I'm a Taurus sun and I'm a Taurus rising. I know exactly what it is that I want, how to get there, what I need from you for it. And I don't need that really. So like, instead of, you know, embarking on another like partnership,
Yeah.
I just don't know if I'm ever going to do it again.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair. That's how you want it, you know? And there'll be people to accommodate that. As long as you're upfront, there's consent. I'm all for it.
I am a master manifester. I can make absolutely anything happen. I had a realization the other day while I was on one of my WALKs that I am exactly where I am right now because of the size of my previous dream.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So instead of being in a multi-million-dollar home, I'm in a dream home, right? Because we're in a 100-year-old, beautiful, historic neighborhood, historic home, that sort of stuff. But I could have been bigger if I had let myself dream bigger. So
Yeah.
I'm not worried about anything ever holding me back. I'm going to get absolutely everything I ever want in this life, and it'll happen very easily.
Absolutely. You are a manifester. It's true. We all have that ability to do that, and honoring what it is that big, successful, beautiful life could look very small and simple and quiet for some people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Big and bold for others.
Absolutely.
Great. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm so glad I have you in the show. For the neurodivergent, gender nonconforming, queer, wonderful, amazing people listening that are entrepreneurs, running their own business, trying to navigate this life and make it as fantastic as possible. What parting words do you want to leave them with?
Take a piece of paper out and draw a picture of yourself with your non-dominant hand. And then look at that picture of that sweet, flawed, imperfect being and talk to that person instead of the person that you are used to talking to in the mirror, and see what transpires.
Well, I feel like I could be really a lot easier on that person.
Yeah, that's a sweet little nugget there who deserves a lot of kindness.
Nugget. Yes. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. I love you all equally and for different reasons. Do your research and take care of yourself. And we'll talk again really soon. Okay, bye.